Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to fly the TBM850 that's just been released by Just Flight from Black Square. Now this is probably the latest and greatest of the Black Square products, for sure the latest, and I'm pretty sure it's also going to be the greatest, but we will find out in this stream. Now in the airplane itself, we've got loads of great features, and I'm going to try to put it through as many as possible on this flight. We'll take it IFR, VFR, and everything in between. Now, the TBM850, unlike the previous Black Square aircraft, is not a steam gauge overall series, so that this is not based on the default TBM930, but instead it only uses a couple of its sounds, but with a lot of custom sounds added as well, so there's plenty of custom stuff in this aircraft. Starting with the doors that are actually opening, obviously going to the correct model. This is an entire custom model that we are seeing on this aircraft. Now going over into the cockpit, or rather in the front of the cockpit. First of all, down here we've got the cargo hold, which got the tow bars and a couple of fuses and bulbs that are spare. And then also we've got the 3D model of the engine that you can see down here that is looking really, really good. All the way down to being able to read all the small marks that we've got on here and all the small stickers on here. Apart from that, very quick look at the spinner up front, because I really have to say I like how this airplane looks. If you just face it from the front like we are doing right now, it's really an awesome looking airplane. Okay, cool. So that much about the airplane by itself. So we do want to take a flying today. I suppose we head right into the cockpit as we go over here, close it up and get going. So we are currently sitting at Arlesund Airport in Norway, made by Orbex, and looking really good by the way, and we'll take it initially down to Sandane on a little IFR flight with a challenging IFR approach. Then we'll cancel IFR, take it VFR, and fly it up a little bit further to the north, to Ørsta, or however you pronounce that. My apologies for not being very good at those Norwegian names. And then we'll take it southbound on a couple further hops. So we'll pretty much take the airplane through everything it has to offer today, and that is going to make for a fun little flight that I estimate is going to take about an hour and a half or something the likes. Right, so let's head right into the airplane, close it up. So we first got to go to the back for a second. Over here we've got the key for the baggage door that we have just closed. And now for closing the doors, we retract the steps first and then close the door second. Here it comes. When the door is closing, make particularly sure that the locks engage over here so that the airplane can be pressurized. That's probably one of the most important things here, otherwise you will quickly run out of oxygen once you go above level 100. Okay, going to close down on here as well, and finally close that door, and then we are good to go. Okay, and the door is closed and locked. Alright, so let's quickly set up the payload for this one. Now I am going to put a couple of you guys here in the back. Let's take 4 passengers, make it a little bit heavy, and then we're going to fuel it up to something like 75% or so. Doesn't take us all the way to the max takeoff weight, but with only 50 kilos missing, we are almost there. Okay, cool. So, crash bar up, source and generators coming on. Let's quickly test the lights, make sure that all of these are working. So, one down here, then we've got the landing gear tests that we can do down here, like so, and finally the ECS. Okay, all of that looking good. Then let's run a quick pre-flight check, make sure the airplane is safe to operate. So we've got all the lights off over here, the gyro instruments are off, and the starter and ignition are off. Battery voltage is above 25. Takes us down to the main panel. Thrustmaster is currently switched off. And then all the anti-icing down here is off, but we can quickly test the pitot heats and the stall heaters. So watch the 3 lights up here. Now we're gonna turn those 2 on, and the lights can be observed going off. Okay, so these are working. Inertial separator can come on, and then going down over here, we can test the ITT. We also got the annunciator test down here, which has tested the annunciators. Okay, then we quickly test the caution panel, and we can see everything's working. And then going further down, the autopilot trim master off, radio master off, all the ECS masters are off, and that's about it. Final thing to check here, all circuit breakers are in, because those can eventually pop, so we always check those on the way out. Also, quite easy to miss, but rather vitally important, the alternate static air and the emergency ram handle down here, which we do want to be pushed in. So, not like that, but indeed pushed in. Okay, perfect. And with that, our cockpit is pretty much scanned. So let's go ahead and start it up. So manual override lever idle, power lever is idle, prop RPM maximum, conditional lever cutoff, flaps up, fuel selector is on the left tank. And now we're going to test the auto fuel. So with the fuel selector on auto, the fuel tank selector is going to eventually switch left and right between the tanks all the time. Okay, then let's go ahead and quickly check that the auto shift function does actually work. So clicking the shift button up here, we can see the fuel tank selectors shifting down here. Alright, so that stuff is working, very good. Then let's go ahead and start it up. So man override idle, power idle, prop lever forward, and conditional lever cutoff. Then nav lights on, strobe lights on, and from here let's go ahead, turn on the fuel pump. Fuel pressure is observed, and we can actually hear the pump running in the background as well. And then I'd say it's time to go ahead and start that engine. Alright, and just to be sure that you guys can actually hear it as well, I do believe there was a little problem previously with the audio, now you should be able to hear it. Alright, cool. So, with that, we are good to start up. So, we've got the lights on, we've got the fuel set, and that is all looking good. So, ignition auto, starter on, watch the voltage and the amperage going down as the engine starts starting up. You can slowly hear it come to life. 13% on the gas generator. That's the condition lever to low. Starting up, so watch the ITT. But as you can see, it's rather cold outside, so the engine isn't exactly going very hot either way. Okay, oil pressure is already observed. NG going through 50, so the starter can come off, and we can put the conditional lever into high idle. So there was a little improvement done on here between the first pre-release version I had and the release version that you're seeing in action right now. As you can see, with the conditional lever in high idle, the prop RPMs are actually going a little bit higher now and are not going into the caution range anymore. I mean, they're at 950 the likes now, so that is just about alright. Okay then, so voltage is about observed at 25 amperage. Or the battery is slowly loading, so let's go ahead and switch on the remainder of the power. I've got number 1. So you can see the gyros coming to life over here. Again, that is a feature of the airplane. They do actually simulate all the lovely stuff involved in the gyros. And you will be able to notice that during flight. Now we are going to try something on this flight. We are going to switch a couple gyros off and see what is gonna happen, because you will actually see those very quickly, or rather very slowly go dead, and that is going to cause the instruments to slightly start misreading, but that can be very hard to detect for the pilot, and that is exactly what we are going to look for today with this flight. Okay. Okay, very quickly spinning up the GPSs. Also a quick look into our airplane state. We can see the engine condition is 100%, and that is that. Okay, weather radar test is looking good, so let's go ahead and start over here. So, first of all, let me get you into the loop on our general flight conditions today. So, weather information at Ålesund. We can see we've got the wind 240 at 11. visibility 10, showers in the vicinity, scattered clouds 1300, broken at 2000, 1013. And the moment we see that, we can quickly cross-check the altimeter indications as well. Okay, so that certainly suggests something along the lines of runway 24 being in use. So let's go ahead and program our SID. Now, on this one, we are going to fly the GG departure from Arlesund, runway 24. So let's have a look into that, and I believe it is GG to Echo. No, it's not, it's the other one. 1 Foxtrot, here we go. Load that up, thank you. And then for our arrival, we are going straight into the star, as it is a very short flight, to Sandane. So ENSD. And it's going to be a localizer approach, runway 26. And for the transition, we'll go for the Gigmoo transition. Load approach, yes. Now let's have a very quick look at how that looks like on the map. And that is pretty much our flight. Now, we are certainly going to take a little shortcut right over here, but we want to see the IFR capabilities of this plane in action. So, transponder 2000 can switch it on already. And in terms of the bleed setup, we are not going to climb above 14,000, so we can keep the cabin altitude down at sea level. Cruising altitude, in fact, is going to be 10,000 today, so let's just quickly turn that up, and that's all we need. Alright, very good. So, that is all the setup we need to do over here. Let's also turn a couple of the lights up. I'm just going to switch on the instrument lights up here, just so that we can see a little bit better. Okay, cool. With that, we're pretty much set up. Quick look in the outside here. It's 10 degrees outside. We do have some clouds, so I do anticipate that we are going to need anti-ice on the flight. So, little look into the chat as well there. First of all, hello everyone, and hi G Walker, nice to see you over here. So, and Faxial, nice name update, A330 driver. Yeah, thank you. Okay, cool. Then, I suggest that we are gonna get it up and going. And Forrest, as for your question as to how my trip was since my last live stream, I tell you, I honestly loved it. Now I probably can say I've been to Philadelphia, and on that one I visited the USS New Jersey on the layover. I can tell you that was an amazing trip. Being able to do that as a job is just a pure gift, really. Okay, so. Okay, quick look at the caution indicator here. It still says aux boost pump on, so that one we forgot. Let's turn that to auto, and now we're ready to go. Okay, I do suppose this poor guy over here is gonna have a bad time in the next couple moments. But as he's unwilling to go away from there, let's see if we can somewhat circumnavigate him without damaging the King Air on our right. But that looks somewhat okay. Perfect. Okay, the windsock is indeed speaking a clear language as to the active runway. So, let's go for taxiway Alpha, and then we'll just take the Alpha intersection without a backtrack. As you can see, there would be a little space there to backtrack, but I don't anticipate doing that today. I'm still undecided which point of view I like better. Like, this is standard point of view for flying, but for taxi I somewhat prefer this, as it gives me a better view of the center lines ahead on taxiway. So, I'm not decided yet. Taxiing it from down here is a little bit difficult, in my opinion, as it is quite hard to see when you are close to your taxiway line. Like right now, I have a feeling I'm turning pretty early, but going outside, it's almost on center line, almost. But then again, going to the right over here, you know, I can see almost nothing. So, it is a little bit of a mixture here as to what I like best for taxiing. Certainly I do like this one best for flying, and moving it up here feels a little bit awkward because, well, you wouldn't sit that high in a plane like this, especially when you've got the chair that can only be changed, well, to a certain degree in terms of the height of the seat, but I do suppose that's just what it is. Alright, so let's quickly hold short of the runway. We're going to run our pre-departure items. Here we go, park and brake set. So, that's master warning park brake, that's expected. We're going to proceed ANAV on the GPS. Pitot heaters on. Now also put the windshield heaters and the propeller de-ice on for this one, because it's 10 degrees and I do anticipate being in the clouds rather early, so icing is certainly a bit of our concern. Alright then, let's go ahead with the run-up. Looking for 1900 RPMs. So as I'm increasing throttle, now we're getting the props running up. Looking for 1900. Park and brake is holding. And getting that right on the PT6 engine just isn't that easy. Like, you can see how small changes on the gas generator I'm doing here in order to move the prop RPMs. But I suppose 20 RPMs more can't be that bad either. Okay, so engine feathering checked. Then let's test the governor. We got the little test button up here, rather hard to hit, but as I'm about to hit it, watch the propeller RPMs dropping by between 50 and 250. As you can see, that's a drop of like 100 RPMs or so. Totally fine for what we're about to do with it. Okay, so with the NG above 80, let's also run the airframe de-ice test. We should see the boots inflate right now. But the most important thing is that we get the green light. I do have a feeling that they did not model the boots inflating at the moment, because on my last video I thought I saw something illuminate. Let's just stick the view up here for a few moments, see if we see the boots pumping up. I thought I saw them inflate, but then again it might just have been the general model that I looked at over here. So let's see. Yeah, they should have switched in the meantime. I don't think I saw it, so that's probably something they're gonna do with a future update, I hope. Okay, airframe de-ice off, and then we can go back to idle. So, weather radar on, transponder out, and then let's do the lights. Landing lights, pulse lights, and that's about it. Okay, park and brake off, flaps down to takeoff. Trim, I'll keep it in the middle. That's outside the green arc, but down here in the middle, the plane flies a little bit nicer to me. Okay then, good to go. Let's taxi onto the runway and take off. So runway 24, wind is coming, well, almost down the runway. There is something we need to keep in mind with the wind up here in Norway, and that is the magnetic variation. So the wind that you get from the METAR, or that we just got from the GPS up here, is given in degrees true. However, we need to have a look in the magnetic wind, as that is really what's interesting for us, and the magnetic wind might not necessarily match that. So, especially on the Canadian North Atlantic coast, you have variations of like 20 degrees, it can be even more, so that is quite a thing for us to keep in mind. Now, over here in Ålesund, the variation isn't that much a problem, luckily, so we don't have to worry with that, and we can safely assume that the wind is indeed coming from straight down the runway. Okay, cool. So with that, I'd say we are ready to go. Now, very important over here to match your thrust lever to the 100% RPM and not to put the thrust lever just all the way forward. You do have an automatic torque limiter, but it can fail, and a torque of more than 100 is not allowed for takeoff. So for that reason, we want to carefully match the power lever with the actual torque, and that means increasing power slowly, as the engine does take a little bit of time to come and spin up. So watch me increasing the power slowly, and especially as the torque is approaching about 100, I'll take things very gently. I'm still sitting on the brake, by the way, just to show you how that thing can run up. Here we go, just watch the slow increments in power lever I'm doing here in order to get the torque to 100. Alright, that's looking good. Then I would say we start the timer. Okay, brakes released, take off. So, power set, speed coming alive. .85 knots, rotate. Looking for about 7.5 degrees pitch at first. Positive climb, tap the brakes, gear up. And once the speed goes through 115, we're going to retract the flaps. Like now, flaps up. Yaw damper on, trim it out. 130 knots, that is our recommended climb speed. Okay, cool. So, flight director, nav, speed hold, autopilot. And here we go. So, nav and level change are active. With the gear up, we can switch off the taxi light. But as you can see by the green light that is flickering, or not flickering in this case, the taxi light has been turned off automatically when we raised the landing gear. Okay, and with that we are on the way. Let's turn on 850 mode now. So, the story behind the 850 mode is that the TBM850 is actually a model that came from the TBM700. Now, the 700 had 700 horsepower, the 850 has 850 horsepower. Now, that means that as we are about to take off, we are only allowed to use 700 horsepower, which is torque 100, but now that we're airborne, or with the flaps retracted, we can put that little switch up here into the 850 mode, and then we can enable the entire 850 horsepower. So let's do that. 850 mode is on, and now we can actually increase the torque past the 100 limit, as you can see over here. So 121.4 is the target torque for our climb. However, do take into account that with the inertial separator on, we might not have full power available to us. And that is the case right now. So my throttles are at maximum forward, that's all I can get, and we're getting only 115% torque. Now here comes a little trap that you may easily fall into, and that is when you're switching off the inertial separator, then your torque is going to increase without a thrust lever increase. And that can easily put you above the 121.5 and therefore make you overspeed your engines. So we've still got, let's see what the temperature is right now. -1 degree, so I'm going to keep the NTIs on and the inertial separator on for now while we climb up. Let's go to, yeah, 10,000 is fine. We don't need any higher. And that's pretty much everything we need for now. So, climbing out safely. Altimeters are on 1013 anyway, which is the local QNH. Now, something that is quite interesting on the... on some videos, especially like Steve Wonky video, he's using a propeller RPM of 1900 to reduce the noise a little bit. In the flight manuals, even in the real flight manual, which you can easily Google for, by the way, you will not find any power tables for 1900 RPMs. So if he's doing that, he's doing it outside the reference of the manual. However, let's go ahead and do that real quick for us as well. Now, two things for you to take care of when you do that. First of all, as your propeller RPMs are decreased, the torque is going to increase. So once again, be careful that you don't overboost your engine. The other thing, as you're running your engine, always have a look at the temperatures. So those are really critical. You can see how we're running 837 degrees ITT right now. 840 is the limit. So we might actually have to reduce engine power a little bit in a few moments. Now, let's go ahead and reduce the prop RPMs at first. And while we do that, have a good look at the torque gauge up here. So, props at 1900, and you could see the torque needle flickering up there as we reduce the power. Okay, approaching 1000 to go. Let's go vertical speed 1000. And altitude is capture is armed, so that we're actually going to level off. Okay, what's the outside temperature now? -9. So we're still in the icing range, we're still in the clouds. So I'm afraid we'll have to leave the inertial separator on for now. And just keep it flying with that on. And keep the power where it is. Now, Ziggy has been asking in the chat, so how do you solve the problem? Do you reduce power then? Yeah, that's exactly what you do. So when the inertial separator is turned off, by the way, we're just about switching to alt mode, so it's leveling off. So when the inertial separator is switched off, you will see the torque increase by up to 10%. And as the torque increases, just reduce your power lever in order to keep it under control. Now, what I would certainly recommend you do, or rather not do, is have your torque right at the maximum when you are turning off the inertial separator. So let me demonstrate that for a moment here. I do hope that I'm not going to fail the engine, but let's see. So I turn the inertial separator off, and now it takes about 20 to 30 seconds, but you can see how the torque immediately starts coming up. And now I'm reducing my power lever in order to keep the torque below the limit. Again, be careful for like 30 seconds or so. You can see here the torque is still increasing, and I'm pulling the power back a little bit. And I would not recommend to start this procedure with a torque all the way up at 121.4, which is maximum. But instead, pull the power off a little bit to like 110%, and then eventually you are going to be able to keep this from overspeeding your engine. Okay, so that's 110 torque, and you can see it's stabilized now. So now we could increase the power once again to 121.4, which is the recommended cruising power for a cruise as low as this anyway. If you're wondering what recommended powers are, then you can quickly find them in the product manual. They do include some very good tables over there. Alright, so still operating inside icing environment, so let's turn the inertial separator back on. And this time I'm not going to touch the power lever. So you can see we've got like 121% torque now. And as I turn the inertial separator on, you can see the light doesn't come on straight away, but watch the torque. I'm not touching the power levers now. And you can see how the torque is reducing as the inertial separator is moving that little flap in the airstream to prevent any fog or ice to actually be thrown into the engine. Now that the inertial separator is fully deployed, the light is coming on. You can see how we started at 121 torque, and now we're down to about 106 or 107. So this way around, you can easily control it, and you can't damage anything. The other way around, you can easily lose quite a bit of power, or over-torque the airplane. Losing power is also a problem, in case it happens when you fly the airplane on approach into icing conditions. You've established on speed, then you turn on the inertial separator as you turn on the anti-ice, and now your torque is going to reduce significantly, and that can cause you to lose quite a bit of airspeed. So that's something to be careful about when you fly the plane. Also be aware, with the inertial separator on, to maintain the same power, the airplane is going to run at higher temperatures, so keep an eye on temperature as well. And a final point, as the chat has pointed out correctly here, the inertial separator is not supposed to be opened when you're flying above 200 knots, so as you correctly pointed out, I overspeeded the inertial separator a little bit here. And flying above 200, we can actually switch it off now, like so, and we're gonna get our power back. And this time I'm not touching the power lever at all, and watch the power increase as our inertial separator is turning off. So yes, that was a correct observation there, Ziggy. You figured that absolutely correctly. Okay, so that is pretty much the that's pretty much this. So power is just about there. Personally, even though 121 is allowed, I do like to keep the needle at just about 120, as it does give me a little bit of reserve so that I can't mess it up as easily. Okay then, this is the route as we filed it. I do suggest we take a little shortcut, go direct to Gigmoo, and then fly our first approach. So what we're gonna do is the localizer approach at Sandane Airport, and we got the charts for that right over here. We're going direct to Gigmu now, and from here we are going to join the final. Now there's a couple of gotchas on this one. First of all, we've got a 5.4 degree glide slope, so it's going to be pretty steep, and that means we have to prepare by getting the airplane's speed under control. Second, we got a rather high minimum, so looking down here into the CAT Bravo minimum, we can see that for the approach 5% go-around criteria, we've got the minimum at 1,900 feet above the field elevation. So let's quickly go ahead and grab the latest weather. So ENSD, weather data please. Winds variable 2 knots. Visibility 10, light rain, clouds, few at 2,600, broken 4,400. Temperature 11, altimeter 1014. Also, always good to notice on those Norwegian airports approaching through the fjords up here, you can see that the wind in 1,140 feet, so the wind about 1,000 feet above our field elevation, is 270 at 4. Now, this can be quite a bit more and quite different from the winds on the ground, and it is quite useful that the Norwegians actually give you this kind of information here, as that can strongly influence your planning of the flight. Alright then, so let's have a quick look into the VNAV. Top of descent at 4 minutes. Let's actually make that a descent target of 2,000 feet a minute, which is the advertised descent angle for the plane, giving us 4.5 minutes to top of descent. Let's also quickly confirm that on the map. So this certainly looks quite steep, doesn't it? Indeed it does, so I'm probably going to start the descent a little bit in front of the actual top of descent that we have up here. Anyway, let's continue our approach preparation. So back to the approach chart. Transition altitude 7,000. Field elevation is 200 feet, so let's turn the elevation to 200 feet up here and make sure that the plane is actually reacting to it correctly. Also the bleed should be on auto and not on high, but not too much of a problem. Okay, apart from that, we've got our final approach course at 252. So let's go ahead and pre-select that real quick. Go to heading mode. Go VOR1, and you can give that a 252. Here we go, pre-selected, and back to GPS navigation. Minimum we set is pretty high. Barometric, that's 2090, so I'm just going to select the minimum bug up here, and I'm not even going to use the minimum from the EFIS, but in case you wanted to, you can always go DH set down here, and then on here you can select your DH. So I'm just going to turn it off so that we don't get a minimum called out there. And that's that. Okay then, let's see a couple of frequencies for the approach. We've got the Stegen NDB 369 along the way. Let's go 369 active, and then we've got under NDB 288 that we're going to use as well. Let's go 288 pre-selected. Very good. Right, final thing, localizer frequency is going to be 108.3 as far as I can see that. And we'll switch that active, and we are going to use it on the number 2 as well, 108.3 active. Okay, and final thing, I'm going to switch it active down here so that we actually get the DME indication. And that should be pretty much all we need. So, quick and dirty setup up here. And then let's see what our remaining track mileage is. Shouldn't be too much, I suppose, because this is going to go really quickly at the end then. The approach itself is offset, so if we have a very quick look down here on the map, you can see down here that's our runway centerline, and that is our approach. So you can see it's quite a bit offset, and it is actually looking quite impressive on a short final over here. So that's pretty much all the setup that we've prepared for, and that is how we're going to fly the approach. Alright, and that should be all the setup. Now, Forrest, no, I'm not flying on VATSIM right now. I'm just doing this offline because I want to do a little quick and dirty VFR hops towards the end of the trip, and I really don't want to be bothered with all the airspace structure and possibly having to coordinate everything with ATC, so for that reason I'm flying it offline. So the GPS advises us top of descent in 1 minute, so let's go ahead and turn the altitude down. That's gonna be 6,800. We'll start the descent. Now, according to the manuals, 2,000 feet a minute is standard rate of descent and the speed at 230 knots, so we are going to reduce the power over here in order not to accelerate too much and keep the speed at 230. However, you can see the maximum is 265, so you can take it all the way up there. However, if you're doing that at higher altitudes, be especially careful that you don't exceed your maximum operating Mach number. So that's something you want to be a little bit careful about when you are flying the TBM. Okay, so temperatures -8 degrees, but slowly warming up. Again, as you guys in chat correctly pointed out, we don't want to operate the inertial separator at speeds above 200, so we are going to keep it off for now, but not for very long, as the inertial separator serves two purposes. On one side, it's protecting the airplane from FOD, but, well, I do suppose it kind of falls under FOD, but it also protects the airplane from bird strikes, so that you can't accidentally ingest birds in the engine's inlet. Beautiful looking terrain down here, isn't it? Really beautiful. Right. First bits of snow here actually, wow. Didn't expect that yet. Okay, so the approach is going to lead us through here, and I suppose somewhere behind those rain showers we're actually going to find our field then. Okay, we can continue the descent. Let's go all the way down to 4,000, intercept the approach. And then let's start speed reduction as well. It's only 14 miles to the airport. Passing 200 knots, I'm going to turn the inertial separator on. And then let's descend towards 4,000. Below 178 knots we can already take out the flaps into the first notch and lower the landing gear if we want to. However, I don't want to do that quite yet. We'll let the automatic stabilize us on the localizer inbound course, and then I'm going to switch the nav source and start the approach on that localizer. So on this one we are just about going to make a 180 on the runway after landing, taxi off, and then we're going to plan our VFR trip a little bit back further north, as we want to see the airplane in action doing its approaches and landings. Okay, got 1,000 to go. Let's level it off, so 1,000 feet a minute at first, and then heading mode. So, localizer mode, and let's go ahead and intercept that localizer. Couple degrees offset here. Nav is armed, and we actually got nav capture there. So it should fly us onto the localizer any moment now. Let's switch over to the approach chart. Here we go, and the important thing for us now is the distance altitude checks down here. So we start the approach out at 6,000 usually. We're going for 4,000 today, as it is going to provide us with a little bit nicer visibility of the terrain, I do hope. So 4,000 feet, that is roughly over Sierra Tango Golf NDB. What we can do, we can have the ADF down here, and we can see the needle over there. And we are going to initiate the descent just after that. So we can see 4,100 over Sierra Tango Golf, that is just in front of 7 miles. And we are going to continue the descent when we're just about a little bit less than 7 miles out. Airspeed is coming back. So So let's set the minimum down here, 2200. With the torque below 100%, we're gonna go out of 850 mode and we'll take the takeoff flaps and the landing gear down. We're at 6.7 miles, that does sound good to me to initiate the further descent. So 1000 feet a minute. Let's go for that, and we are looking at the speeds. Let's see, we're gonna go for 90 knots, giving us 900 feet a minute, so we might need a little bit harder descent now. Speed below 122, that's gonna be landing flaps. Taxi light on. We're out of the icing conditions, so let's turn the anti-ice off down here, prop de-ice off, windshield heat I'll put off as well. Okay, so let's see, 5 nautical miles, and we should be at 3020 over here. We're a little bit high right now. Let's do a tiny bit better rate of descent. So field should be located just over there. We've got that in sight, so we can continue the approach visually. Okay, missed approach is going to be to 6,000 feet, so 6,000 is set. Okay, let's now do 800 feet a minute. That should be roughly what we need for our continued descent. Maintain the speed at 85. So whenever you're flying on autopilot, you shouldn't go below 85 knots. When you are at heavy weights like we are right now, you also shouldn't be going below 85 knots, even when you are flying manually. So that's just a couple of rough values for you to keep in sight. Alright, going through the minima. The runway is down there. I'm just keeping the autopilot engaged for a little while to take us a little bit closer, and then we'll take it manually, because I want to avoid the GPWS from activating as we're flying past these mountains over here. Couple of rain showers on the final there. What's the temperature now? +9. Yeah, that's gonna be fine without the anti-ice. And Gert, good point. Let's set QNH 1014. Set number 1 and set number 2. Alright, so looks good. Autopilot off. Flight director off. Yaw damper off. So let's see if the GPWS is going to trigger on this one. I sure hope not. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does. Now, what I would be surprised is if it activated on the GTN. Because on the GTN, we are running the Garmin trainer. Okay, it tells us terrain ahead, but I suppose that's fine as I'm flying rather close to the mountain.
Terrain ahead. Pull up.
Okay, this actually gives us pull up, so I'm going to go inhibit TORS as we are visual and as we are going to continue that approach visually. Okay then, short final, cancel the noise abatement.
500.
Prop control full forward. And you can immediately feel how the airplane goes a little bit further nose down. I like that. I do like the flight model. It's not like a custom model as A2A is using it. This is, well, a custom model based on the default sim, but not running an external engine like A2A, but still it flies really nicely and I do like how the airplane behaves. Nonetheless, I've never flown an actual TBM, but I can imagine this to be quite possible. Okay, idle power. Not a very long runway. Let's just put it down. And we're down. And even though I said it's not a very long runway, we don't even need the beta range over here. Here we go. Let's roll all the way to the end, and we make a 180 over there and bring it back to the apron. However, don't worry, it's not going to be a very long stay. It is going to be a pretty short one. as we're about to take the plane out for the next adventure. This time hopping around VFR through the fjords on the way to the next destination. Now, I said it on my last live stream, and I'm probably going to repeat it right over here. Normally a plane like this would only be flown VFR for like takeoff and landing, and en route parts would usually be flown at high altitudes, IFR, because it's not only more efficient, but it also means less danger from bird strikes at low altitude, from hitting any dentists in their SR-22 at low altitudes, and so on. However, what we do want to keep in mind here is that I know flight simmers do love to take these small airplanes VFR as well, so I do suppose we are going to do the same up here to make it a little bit more interesting. So next one is going to be VFR, and thereafter we'll do one with a VFR departure and landing button IFR part en route, so that we've covered all three. Okay, gonna take it straight up here and stop here for a moment. So, parking brake is on. We're gonna keep the heaters as we'll depart pretty soon again. Flaps back towards takeoff. Trim roughly in the middle. That is good. It can stay over there. And then we'll quickly put the lights off so that the people around don't think that we are about to start taxi any moment again. Okay, so that was number 1. Now let's go ahead and have a quick look in the sky vector for number 2. And this time we are going to take it from Sandane, a little bit further up northbound, but I am going to show you right over here as we do a quick planning. So we start at ENSD once again. And our destination on this one is Echo November Oscar Victor. So, very quick, short flight over here, but I am going to plan it just a little bit over here for some VFR routing, so it's going to be something down here through the fjords to make things a little bit more exciting, and then we'll take it through the fjords over here, and that is going to lead us right into this little fjord from where we are going to do the rest of our navigation. So, weather at Ørsta is telling us 08085, showers in the vicinity, few 1500, broken 3800. That means we gotta stay down low in order to avoid running into that. Alright, so that's pretty much this. So let's go ahead and put that into... Let's go ahead and punch that into the GTN, at least in a very basic version. So delete the flight plan. We're going to depart from nope, certainly not that one. Remove. So, ENSD. That's the one. Towards Echo November Oscar Victor. Alright, and finally, let's zoom out a little bit, and we want to go, we sat down here, and then we'll go through somewhere over here. Okay, so, graphically added flight plan then. Nope. Okay, so remove the destination for a moment. And then we're gonna go for a graphical edit of the plan. So we go for that one. If you would be so kind. Nope, doesn't look like it. Interesting. Okay, so I suppose we do add the destination once again. Why do I always type Echo Delta? Oh boy. So, Oscar Victor, that's just about fine. And ultimately we know where we're going anyway, so can still do that. Graphically added plan. But it... Okay, here we go. Do we? Come on. Interesting, it doesn't let me do that. If anyone knows why, you are more than welcome to point it out. But in any case, we're gonna find it just by looking outside the window as well. So let's return to Squawk VFR. and then we should be good to go. And a question there from, well, a couple of questions there from people actually. Forrest, what aircraft did you, GLY, what does that stand for? Okay, fly, so, sorry. During your training, on what would be the perfect trainer? I honestly don't know what the perfect trainer would be, but I did fly, well, the Cessna 172, the Cessna 150, Piper 28, both the A and the B, and then going to multi-engine, I flew the PA-34 and the PA-44. But the ideal trainer, honestly, I don't know. I think it would probably depend on the student, really. Because everybody got slightly different expectations, so yeah, I'd totally say that is going to vary by the student. Okay then, let's go ahead and depart again. This time we're not going to go that high, because we'll keep visual and keep within the fjords, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Okay then, backtrack. Lights can come on, and the pulse lights are on anyway. Okay, so trim is set, flaps are in the takeoff position, the anti-ice is still on as needed. 11 degrees down here, and staying VFR, we shouldn't touch the clouds anyway, even though we might go through a rain shower, but we are going to decide on that later on then. We don't need to do the second run-up, but quick check that the prop RPMs are actually in the full forward position, because that is something that here in the sim I do tend to forget. Alright, this time we're going to take it out to the side over here. I do love how they put those barriers in place here in front of the runway. And as they say, there's a story behind everything. And I have a feeling I don't want to know this one. Okay, gonna go for the full runway length. We need about 1,000 meters on this one. So it does need a little bit of a runway. But that's totally fine for us. Okay, let's quickly set the field elevation like that. Okay, flaps are out and the pressurization system is set as well. So let's go, take off. Gonna keep on the brakes once again in order to set the torque. So let's have it run up for a bit. Torque 100 set. Brake release, take off. And we are obviously... Oop. Gonna keep an eye on the timer as well. Okay, wow, so the elevator actually works fairly early during the takeoff run. So, 85, rotate. Positive climb, tap the brakes, gear up. $115, flaps up, yaw damper on, taxi light off. So a little shower coming over there, but we should be able to fly around that without further problems. Like so. Okay, just gaining a little bit of altitude here, and when we have that, we are gonna make a 180 to turn into the direction of our next airport. And let's go and make that turn right now. I'm not even going into 850 mode on this one. We'll keep 170 knots. Let's not go too fast. And then let's see if the fjord is wide enough. It looks like to me like we're gonna overshoot a little bit, so you know what, we're flying VFR. Let's go 45 degrees of bank. Like that. And here we go. Alright, we're going to follow the fjord over here. Like so. And CMB Elite FR, is the TBM released? Yes, it is, my friend. Alright, I'm going to keep the speed somewhere down here. And I want to do a little experiment. Let's see what's going to happen. Oh, I just got to get rid of the thrust lever for a moment. Here we go. Let's put the prop RPM all the way down to 1600. So just above the feathering position there. This is what I would imagine noise abatement would really look like. And like that, we're going to maintain like 185, 190 knots, something the likes. But this is actually running the engine rather hot, is it? We've got a pretty high torque now, at 90%. Okay, the RPMs are slightly below where I want them to be. Let's add a little bit more, like so. But look at the engine temperatures here. Almost 800 degrees. Well, the torque is almost at maximum. But you can see we're not flying that fast with the prop RPMs back that low. On the other hand side, though, it is getting rather quiet, so that is a positive of that setting. Alright, established. So we're going straight, then take the first fjord to the right hand side. Now, I know it would be easy to cheat using the GPS, but I'm really not looking too much at it. Let's just do it that way. Let's go without the GPS and see if we can find the airport. So let's not have the speed go too high. This is looking rather good. Also no autopilot on this one, just the yacht Emperor is on. Because I kinda like not to have to use too much rudder. That really improves handling characteristics for me a little bit. Okay. So the rest of it is gonna be all VFR on this sector over here. Alright, after this one we're gonna turn to the right. And then let's see how high we gotta go in order to cross the mountains between those fjords. But I wanna stay in them at first because, let's be honest, this just looks totally amazing, doesn't it? I really want to do this for once in real life. I'm sure that's gonna be a one-of-a-time experience. Okay then, let's turn right over. This somewhat reminds me of my first couple of days flying Flight Simulator X like 15 years ago. And flying mainly from the outside, especially on that St. Martin landing challenge with the default CRJ back in FSX. That was really amazing. Flying it from the outside, I don't know. Feels a little strange, but it is fun, isn't it? Let's see at what altitude we're gonna end up by the time we get back inside. Beautifully looking airplane, isn't it? I really like it. Okay, very quick look into the chart. Let's have a look at sky vector. So we're coming out from the bottom over here. That means we gotta turn 001 and then go through the fjords over there now. Let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna start that right-hand turn, and then we'll try to find that little canyon that we've been looking for. But look at that, the altitude's still looking okay. So, I have a feeling we're gonna go through the canyon over there. That's the one we are looking for. So this is where the bird strike risk is the greatest now, as we're about to fly pretty close to those hills and mountains. I suppose I'm going to pull a little bit of power off, just to reduce the speed a bit. Say like 160 knots, rather than 190. Okay, let's go into here. What does it look like? Okay, it looks to me like we do need to climb a little bit just to get over that. Okay, so power back on. Pull that speed off. Here we go. Just a shallow climb though, I don't want to go too high. And let's get totally rid of that GPS screen so that we can't cheat at all. Okay, this looks like all we need to me. Just getting across that little gap over here. And once we've got that, we are going to, well, stick right about where we are right now. That should be good altitude. This must be a beautiful lake in the real world. In simulator, well, not all that much. I mean, look at the photorealistic textures down here. That must be looking quite cool.
500.
And it's a beautiful looking airplane overall, isn't it? The TBM. And as I mentioned, this is a completely custom model. This is not one of the stock models like Black Square have used with their steam gauge overhaul series, but this is a completely custom one for the TBM850. Okay, we're past this, going right into the fjord, and then we should be able to find our destination airport towards the end of it. Man, I want to do this in real life. I absolutely want to do this in real life. That would be amazing. Would be absolutely amazing. And Captain Airborne, hi, could you fly to Wangerooge? Well, probably not on this one, as I won't have the time to fly over. But I'm sure we can do a VFR stream around that area at some point. I'm absolutely sure we can do that at once. However, the runway at Wangerooge might be a little bit short for the TBM. Looking in the manual, you need roughly about 1,000 meters runway. And Wangerooge doesn't have that. Indeed, the only East Frisian Islands, as far as I know, that has a runway like what we need is Norderney. But I might not even be correct on that. For sure, Emden is one close by that you can take it into. Alright. Man, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. It's just an amazing airplane. Okay, so our destination should be right on the other side of the mountain over there. Unfortunately, I don't have any approach charts for it, as it is going to be VFR arrival. But we'll see. If we do have a very quick look into... If we do have a very quick look into into Sky Vector once more, then we can get a little bit of destination information. We're coming up over here right now. That's the mountain I meant. So it's only going to be 3 miles. And looking at this, this is going to be a straight-in approach. The winds are variable 2 knots, so indeed we will be able to go straight in. So this is 3 nautical miles, and the field elevation is 240 feet. So let's go down to 1,240. So that we've got a nice 3-degree path on our approach. And then the next challenge is going to be finding that runway at first. It's going to be somewhere over here. Let's see. This is actually quite high. That looks more like 1,000 feet or so. Okay, so it's going to be 3 miles into this direction over here. Could this be approach lights? Yeah, that looks like a runway. That is a runway. Okay, cool. So, power off. Takeoff flaps, gear down. Drop lever full forward. But this is certainly not 240 foot elevation. That is much higher. That is like much higher. Right, here we go. Then speed coming down. Yaw damper off. Taxi light on. Landing flaps.
$500.
Okay, perfect. So let's just get that speed back a little bit more. Man, look at those tunnels down on the left over here. This is quite an amazing approach, isn't it? Quite an amazing airport, actually. And quite an amazing airplane flying into it. Okay, idle power. And we're down. I'll just let it roll to the end. And here we are. Okay, off to the right. Then we'll taxi just to the front of the, well, I'll call it terminal. You know what I mean. Here we are. Okay, gonna stay here for a short while. Park and brake set. Let's just shut it down real quick. It's not gonna be long. We will be flying again very shortly. But we do want to go through a couple procedures as well, do we? Okay, so that's all that stuff going off, 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 off. The cabin is depressurized. Okay, so let's turn that engine off for a second. And we want to conserve battery life as well. Keep the inertial separator. Okay, let's quickly have it run down. And once the propeller comes to a stop, I'm going to switch off the lights and the power. And then we're going to plan the next flight, which is going to be a little bit up higher to a good altitude so that we can actually put the airplane through a couple of tests. Alright, so that engine is almost stopped. Alright, and off it goes. So let's grab a little bit of fresh air. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep this closed so that we can have a look at how the cabin temperature is going to develop. And then I'm going to open a door in a few moments so that we can see what the cabin temperature is going to do then. The overall thing that I want you guys to be able to observe on this one actually is that the cabin temperature is influenced by the outside. So it's influenced by the conditions in the sky, the temperatures down here, and it's influenced by the state of the door. And it does have an influence on the cabin temperature if you've got just one door open or if you've got both doors open. So you can see right now it's decreased from 18 to 17. And what I'm going to do now, press to unlock, open. Now let's have a look into the development of the temperatures now. This is at like 17 degrees right now. I'm going to put that at the side of the screen so that you can have a look at my sim brief as well. What we're going to do next is a very quick flight from here down to Echo November Sierra Oscar, which is another lovely little airport that we have in the area. Alright, so let's have a quick look into flight radar. Sorry, I keep saying flight radar. Obviously, I do mean sky vector on this one. And do we still have temperature visible here? No, we don't. Yeah, there it is. So do have a quick look on the temperature gauge over here, and as it develops, as we open the door. It's down to 16 degrees now. It is going to go down a little bit further. And in the meantime, let's quickly plan our flight over here. We're going to start with a world low map. So we don't have any departures available from here. So I do suppose we are just going to go direct to Omabi at first. You know what? We're just going to go direct to Tumim down here. Like so. And then from Tumim, gonna follow that airway all the way to Getlu. Actually, no, this is a one-way direction airway, so we are not going to do that. But indeed, what we're going to do is all the way to Flesland VOR over here, and from there we're going to fly VFR again. Now, we are not going to fly too high, and that means that we can legally fly these directs without having to worry about much of the navigation part of things. Alright, cool. So that's our planned route of flight. And Ziggy Air, is that not an airport? Yes, it absolutely is. Okay, so you can see temperatures down to 14 now, and that's pretty much that. Okay, let's go ahead with a little quick start of the TBM once more. So the doors in the back are closed, never touched them. And down we go with the door over here. Okay, and the door's locked, as you can see. Now, let's go ahead and fire it up. Source on, generator on, and then we got the nav light, the strobe lights. I'm not going to run any of those tests anymore, because we've basically done all of them. So, fuel boost pump on, fuel is looking good. So, right side is the fullest tank, that's pre-selected, very good. Okay, and let's quickly get those flaps up as well, I forgot them after landing. Quick feature over here that many of you may or may not be aware, so let me just turn that off once more. So, with the crash bar up, but the source selector off, if you just want to get an IFR clearance, just flick the radio master down here, and it is only going to turn on your COM1. Now, COM1 in our case is part of the GTN 750, for that reason only the 750 turns on, and that is the so-called ground clearance mode. But we're gonna switch that off once again, and we're gonna start the airplane up like that. Okay, source on, lights on, fuel we already checked to be good. Now, what you can see over here is the residual heat that you've still got in the engine, still slowly coming down, but you can see we've still got like 193 degrees in there. So as we're about to start the engine up, we just carefully gotta monitor that it doesn't overheat. Okay, ignition auto, starter on, watch the voltage drop down here. So, gas generator is running up. And you can see how that has an influence on the internal turbine temperature here. How quickly that is reducing now. Okay, 13%. Let's put the mixture on. And here we go. So, watch it closely. And we're not over-temping. That's the important thing. 50% NG, that's self-sustaining. Starter can go off. Watch the voltage up there and make sure the battery is charging. Okay, and then we can go to high idle. And that is going to increase the NG a little bit more and get the prop RPMs up outside the amber range, or at least very close to the 1000 RPMs. Alright, looking good so far. So that's our engine start completed. And that's our settings up here completed. Let's continue with those gyros that we have down here, 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 and here. Alright, cool. And with that, our airplane is up running again. This only takes a couple more moments. And we can go ahead with our GTN, program the route. So delete, yes, thanks, add. Departing ENOV, and we set our destination is going to be ENSO. like that. And for the route, we are going to fly over Tumim. So that's Tumim. And after that, we are going to fly overhead Fox Lima Sierra, Fleesland, VOR, and that's it. Okay, this time we're going to climb up to like, let's say 20,000 feet. So I am going to select the 20,000 plus 1,000 feet on the cabin altitude to have for a low margin. Alright, and that is our setup complete. Let's go ahead and depart. Initial climb, once again, we're going to go to 10,000 and taxi light, come on. Park and brake off, and that's it. Okay, so the wind were light and variable, so we are going to depart in the opposite direction that we just came in from. And just take a very quick moment before we start taxi and appreciate the look out here. Appreciate how those mountains actually look absolutely fantastic in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Also with the clouds on top of it, the great looking airplane down here, that's just... it's just marvelous, isn't it? Everything that this simulator is capable of showing is just purely fantastic. Okay, not gonna do the run-up on this one, as we really want to get going. Clear on the left, clear on the right. Lights are on, and I'm overturning, of course. That's what happens when you're looking up instead of looking outside. Well, heap happens. Okay then, flaps on the takeoff. And this one is going to be a rather short runway, so things are going to get a little bit more interesting. I'm going to make this rolling. And I might as well turn the heaters on. Okay, here we go. So, power set. Speed is coming up. .85 knots, rotate. Positive climb, tap the brakes, landing gear up. Okay. So we slowly start clearing the mountains to the left of us. Flaps up. Okay, taxi light off. Yaw damper on. Boost pump auto. And this time we're going to fly just a little bit faster. So the recommended climb speed for the airplane is 130 knots. However, it does well at 170 as well, and that is just going to save you that little bit of time down there as you make your flights, especially when you're flying online on VATSIM. It is nice to be able, when ATC is only online for only like 2 hours or so, it is nice to have that little bit of extra time available. So 170 does save you a couple of minutes on your flight, and as you will see, the plane still climbs rather nicely at it as well. Okay, so we're well clear, flaps are retracted, 850 mode on, and then let's increase the torque. Like here we go. Okay, so nice rate of climb of like 2,000 feet a minute. We can observe the cabin is climbing as well, however we don't need it to go that fast. So let's control that. And with that we are now on the way. So nav, speed, autopilot. I like how smoothly the autopilot is taking over when it is activated on this one, compared to a couple of other aircraft in the sim, where when you turn the autopilot on, you just got that jolt going through your airplane, if you know what I mean. Also, a quick look in front that we're actually clearing the mountains, but this is looking rather fine. So this is where we departed. You can see the angle isn't that good, because I am flying the plane at 170, and that is really taking its toll on its climb performance. So When you need to clear an obstacle, then just go for the standard climb at 130 knots. Or you could even go slower at VX. You will find that speed down in the manual. But you will see that 130 is actually giving you quite a nice climb. 170 more a bit of a cruise climb here, but as you can see works quite fine as well. And now I just really quickly want to show you what I meant with the inertial separator before we enter the actual icing conditions there. Let's flick it off, and with my power lever still fully forward as I had it, you can see how it's quickly running into the overspeed condition. And I'll just let it go in there for a second. You can see we're getting the torque warning, because the torque limiter is not capable of keeping us out of it if the power is increased thanks to the inertial separator. And now that we had the torque warning, you will see that down here on the engine monitor we are also going to get that indication of the exceedance. So the engine monitor is actually keeping track of all of that. However, if the warning came on and you acted quickly on it, then if you have a look over here, the engine condition hasn't really deteriorated because there are some margins built into it, and we only overboosted it for like a very short period in time, so we didn't really do any damage to the engine. Okay then, let's go up to 20,000. And I want to do one more test over here with the airplane before we're actually going to run all the way up. So, quick test that I want to do is in terms of the cabin pressurization system and what it can or cannot do. So, right now, we've got the bleed set auto, air conditioning on, fan flow auto. Now, this up here is the only thing that we really care about for our pressurization. This down here is cabin temperature control. Now, looking at the temperature control, you can see right now it's 20 degrees, so it is quite fine. However, if you're really climbing up to a very high level, say climbing up to the ceiling of flight level 310, and then running the bleed in auto, the plane is not going to be able to maintain temperature, and the temperature is going to drop. What happens then is you can switch it to high, and then it's going to be able to get the temperatures back to the target. Now let's see, current outside air temperature is -9 degrees, so we might even be able to recreate that already. At first though, I'm going to switch the inertial separator back on, because as you can see we're picking up some ice over here, and on the wings we got a little bit as well. So let's turn on all the anti-icing systems. Inertial separator is coming on, and as you can see torque is decreasing. I'm putting my thrust levers all the way forward, and as you can see we're limiting out at some torque like 115 or so. Also we passed the transition altitude, so let's go standard for a second so that we've got the flying part done. And then let's turn on the anti-ice system. So they're all located down here. Let's start with the windshield heat, prop de-ice and airframe de-ice. Now the airframe de-ice, as you can see, I turned it on, and that ice that we had down here cleared pretty quickly. Now the reason for that is simple. The airframe de-ice in this airplane compared to, for example, the Boeings or the Airbuses is pneumatic. So the boots inflate, and that simply makes that ice break off the wing straight away. For that reason it is a very effective anti-ice system. Now there is something more related to the anti-ice that I can demonstrate you, so let's turn the windshield anti-ice off and see if we can have a little bit more ice build up. Now, obviously we're outside the clouds already, so any ice that would possibly have built would already have been gone. However, knowing Microsoft Flight Simulator, I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit more ice builds up over the time, and if that happens, I want to show you something. Now, let's see. Well, looks like Microsoft doesn't recognize any ice here either, but then I'm just going to show you in theory. And since there is no more ice building, let's turn off the prop de-ice and the airframe de-ice, and that's it. Also, we can get rid of the inertial separator, since we're now well clear of any possible icing conditions. With the sun ahead, by the way, let's get that sun shield down like so. And then we can go over one more thing. By the way, pulse lights off, and we're above 100, so landing lights can go off as well. So, what you can do in... Oh, what's that? Master warning torque. Okay, so I got myself into the same problem that I told you about when turning off the inertial separator that I told you to stay clear from. But that is exactly what I meant. Luckily we saw it early enough, so I do believe we should have prevented any damage to the engine. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, engine condition is still at 100%, so that's fine. Now, what I wanted to show you is down here. You've got that little knob. Now this is temperature control knob. And when this is all the way in the normal position, we get as much air as possible for our cabin temperature controls. However, if we turn this all the way to the left, like so, then we can deflect that air from the... heating the passengers to the defrost mode up here to heating the windshield. If we do that, now the warm air that would normally be used for cabin temperature control is blown directly at the windows, and that can work as somewhat a low-level windshield anti-ice as well. And the guys at Black Square did model this, which I find quite amazing, to be honest. So you can de-ice your windshield like that as well. So that's quite a cool thing there that I want to show you real quick. Now, for us, let's go back to warming the cabin. So I'm gonna put this all the way back to normal. Like this. Perfect. Alright then, so going up to this altitude, I probably don't even need to demonstrate the bleed system, but there is one more system that I want to demonstrate. And this is what we find up here on the oxygen gauge. So actually I should have switched this on earlier. And there's two differences. You've got the oxygen button down here, and you've got the oxygen supply pressure in here. Now, this is basically what controls the pilot's oxygen masks. Can test them up here. And the first officer's oxygen mask. Now, yes, I did not confuse them. You've got the pilot's mask on the right side and the passenger's mask on the left side there. The reason for that is that you can simply grab over and quickly grab the mask that you're looking for. Makes it quite easy to grab the mask as you need it. Also, we're flying IFR now, so let's go Squawk 2000, but that's just a quick thing. Okay, nonetheless, the thing I wanted to show you is what happens when you actually depressurize the aircraft. As you can see right now, cabin altitude is like 3,500 feet, almost where we commanded it, and the differential pressure is nearing the maximum. Now, there is several safety features built into a pressurized airplane. Most importantly, when the differential pressure exceeds the maximum, there is going to be an automatic safety relief valve that is going to open, and that is going to prevent your cabin from taking any damage by going to any excessive differential pressures exceeding the structural limits that your airplane can take. So what I'm going to do, I'll climb 2,000 feet higher than what I have pre-selected, so that we climb above the maximum cabin differential, and that is going to cause the safety relief valve to open, which is going to dump a little bit of cabin pressure until eventually the differential goes back to the certified maximum. Now, that is going to take a few minutes of time, so let's quickly talk about some of the comments that you guys have put in down here. So first of all, Cuba, shouldn't you have the transponder set to 1000? No, not at all. That is something that VATSIM can easily make you believe. However, that is not how it works in real life. So 2000 is the standard IFR squawk when there is no custom code assigned. And that is what we use, for example, when crossing the North Atlantic. 1000 is a transponder code that's used only in a very limited number of areas, and it is a transponder code that is used when the ATC equipment along the route is capable of identifying the airplane just by looking at the transponder's output. So when we have a look into the GPS over here, we go on the squawk, you can see down here we've got the flight ID. And over here, for example, if I set, I don't know, let's take something random. Let's just take something like Lufthansa 1. You know, if I put that in, now air traffic control would see our flight as Lufthansa 1 on their screens. And they only use the squawk 1000 when they're identifying the aircraft like that. But 2000 is standard IFR squawk, and 1000 is only when it's used when it's assigned by controllers. Okay, so here we got what I meant. The cabin pressure warning is showing, because the differential has reached the maximum. The safety relief valve has opened, and you can see that the cabin pressure differential is staying just above the maximum down here. Let's see if we can actually find that one visually. However, I don't know which of the several valves it is on this plane, so if I don't find it for you straight away, then my apologies. I have not actually checked on that beforehand on the stream, but I can't see any valve open right here, right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is modeled, honestly. In any case, what you can see is the differential pressure is capped at the maximum that it is assigned, and like that, we're getting that cabin differential pressure warning. Now, there is something more that I want to demonstrate you. I told you earlier about the oxygen pressure indication up here. Now, currently the oxygen is fully filled. However, let's go ahead and dump all the cabin pressure. I'm going to use the dump button here. This is going to hurt in your ears, okay? So my apologies for that. You can see how the cabin altitude comes up drastically. And at the same time, the cabin differential pressure is decreasing. And I want to get that cabin altitude above 10,000 so that we're actually using the masks. So let's get it above. Here we go. Now it is above 10,000. And that means we have to use oxygen masks. Now, listen to the sound, by the way. I love how they implemented that. Okay, let's keep the cabin here. But I am going to switch the bleed system off. Just so that the cabin altitude doesn't go down straight away again. So this is what we get with the bleed system turned off. By default, the cabin climbs at like 1,000 feet a minute. So you can see that is a lot of air flowing outside your cabin. And what's going to happen eventually, as this is working its way, is you will see the oxygen in the tank deplete. And this actually depletes dynamically based on the number of passengers that you have selected in the weight and balance menu over here. So you can see we've got 6 people on board, and the oxygen is going to deplete quicker like that than it would if we were flying with just a single person aboard the airplane. Okay, now I'm going to switch the bleed system back on auto. You can see how it immediately gets the cabin altitude back under control, how the cabin altitude starts descending. But since the cabin altitude is at like flight level 155 now, until it is below 10,000 at a rate of 500 feet a minute, that is going to take quite a bit of time. So as that time passes by, we are now going to consume oxygen from up here. So let's just continue our flight, and then we'll see where the needle is eventually going to be. Also, I'm going to press that button up here, passenger oxygen, and that would release the passenger oxygen masks for use as well. Unfortunately, no 3D model of them, as we can see. But that is just a tiny thing there that I wanted to show you on this model, to show you some of the things that are actually simulated going on under the HUD. You know, that by default you just wouldn't see, because this is one of the things that make the black square aircraft really stand out compared to other aircraft, you know, that aren't simulated to such a deep level. But that's just one of the little things that I wanted to show you over there. Now, Sweet050 is asking, are there any rules for clearing overflying mountains, like you must be at least so many feet above the terrain? Yeah, for IFR flights it's 2,000. For VFR flights, if there is no population on those mountains, it's the standard 500 feet that you have to be above terrain. And First Officer Conflict asking, hello, big fan. Well, thank you for that. What's a typical cruising speed of this thing? Well, a typical cruising true airspeed is about 300 knots, depending on the altitude and the speed that you're flying. Now, talking about it, let's have a very quick look down here. We're currently flying a typical power setting for the cruise in this airplane. You can see the ITT as a maximum the torque as maximum 121.4, 2000 RPM, so that is exactly what the book would instruct us to fly. Now, if we go down to the engine trend monitor, you can see it still tells us about the exceedance we had earlier. But if we go down to airfield data, then we can have a look down here. So flight time is 17 minutes. But what we're looking for is this one. So we're doing indicated airspeed, 219 knots, true airspeed 308, and that equals Mach 0.51. So this is pretty much the speed that this airplane is going to give you. when you fly it on the normal cruise power table from the manual. About 310 true airspeed. Now if you're going up to flight level 310, it's going to become a little bit less. It's going to be approximately 300 knots true airspeed that you will have as a cruising speed in the TBM. Alright, there is a lot more to that engine monitor, by the way. There's a lot more to it, but I'm just going to give you that little stuff right here. And Just Flight has a really detailed video on the engine and the monitor, and I can really recommend you to check that out after the stream. Alright, so let's have a quick look into what we're about to do then. You can see we've got like 46 miles to run to Flesland VOR, and after that we are going to continue to start our descent. We've got 30 more miles to run to our airport. So, few things that I want to go over. The first one is, how do you plan your descent in case you don't want to use all the fancy GPS stuff? Well, very quick look into the product manual to show you a couple of the neat tables that we have in here. So, this is the black square TBM manual, and you can see it's like 104 pages down here, so really a lot of useful stuff in there. Going over the content and all the differences that we have in here. Now, this one also has very detailed information about the engine tramp monitor, and let's quickly find that for you guys. However, the thing that I am looking for right now is actually the power tables, and here we got them. So you can see down here we've got a little descent performance table for 230 knot descent at 2,000 feet a minute. We're at roughly 22,000 feet, so as you can see the distance we need to descend is roughly about 50 nautical miles. That means 20 miles ahead of Flesland VOR we are going to have to start our descent. Also gives you things like the time, like the fuel you need, and so on. So like that you can actually do your fuel planning on this airplane as well. So up here we've got the takeoff table, we got the climb table, that's down here. As you can see in here, it also tells you the climb and the fuel needed to do those, or the distance and the fuel. So like that you can easily make up a fuel planning for yourself, since at this point SimBrief does not yet have a profile for the TBM850. However, it does have a profile for the TBM900, and that is going to be sufficient for you to use as well, as it is going to get you close enough. If you just add, you know, a little safety margin like 20% more, then you are going to be totally safe. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to be too long until we're actually going to get the table for that as well. So, loads of useful information here. The next one that we just have open over here is the gyroscopic physics. So, let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun with that. And basically what it's going to tell you is that when the gyroscope is turned on, it needs only a couple of seconds to stabilize itself and run up. When it is turned off, it is going to need a lot longer time, up to 20 minutes. Basically between 10 and 20 minutes for the gyroscope to run down. In that time, your flight instruments are going to lose some of their accuracy, and that is what we're going to have a look at right now. So, we currently got the gyroscopes running, and we can see our instruments are dead stable. Now, we can either go down here and search for some circuit breakers to switch off, which we could do. So I suppose if we go down here, let's take a gyroscope, the gyro circuit breaker here. But as you can see, on the EFIS we got the attitude failure. However, the two conventional devices we have in here still run totally fine. Now I'm going to put that circuit breaker back in, and the EHSI is working again. But what happens if we turn the gyro instruments up on here? So let's take ADI2 and HSI2 and turn the two off. But you can see they still indicate perfectly fine. But during the course of our flight we will slowly see them start drifting away, but that is going to take several minutes. And since this is a black square aircraft, all of these things can fail and will fail eventually. But you will see that at first they don't even start running away, but it is going to take time. And that is the big danger with gyroscopes failing. So this one should still work, but moving over here, this one is very slowly going to start drifting away. And as that happens, if you are flying IMC, you can see how you can really quickly get yourself into severe trouble by doing that. And all of this stuff is simulated. So if any of your gyroscopic instruments is going to indicate a value that where you say like, hey, that doesn't make sense, be sure to compare it very carefully to the other ADIs that you have in your cockpit. And in case it is a compass that's affected, that's not showing correctly, be sure to very carefully compare it to the standby gauge, as these things can run out of control very, very quickly and can get you into real trouble there. And in my opinion, it's just beautiful that Black Square is actually simulating these kind of things. It really gets you into that totally immersive flight. Alright, so cabin altitude is slowly coming back under control. It's down to 11,000 already. However, if we have a look into the oxygen, you can see we've used quite a bit of it. We started down here at like 1,800 psi, and we're down to 1,500 now. And it's going to be a little bit more time where we are going to deplete our oxygen until the cabin altitude is back safely down below 10,000 feet. But that is just what I wanted to show you on that one. So let's go ahead and increase the cabin rate of descent a little. And we're about to start our descent anyway. We said we need like 50 miles to descend, so after Fleesland towards Enzo, it's going to be like 30 miles, as we can see in here as well, 31 miles. So this is a good moment to start our descent and to get going. So, initially I'm going to go down to 10,000 vertical speed, going to go down to 2,000 feet a minute, and reduce power a tiny bit, because we don't want our speed to exceed 230 knots. There are a couple of standard speeds that you should be aware of when you're flying the TBM, and one of them you can find up here in the product manual right in the front. So have a look at that, and you can see, for example, that on here we've got our maximum speeds to fly, never exceed speed, and so on. What's not in here indeed is the maximum operating Mach number, but that is something to be aware of. We can see up here aircraft performance, maximum cruising speed and true airspeed 320. Now, as you remembered, we flew at 310 already, so when you're descending at high altitudes and you let your speed increase, you want to be very careful there that you are not going to exceed that maximum true airspeed of 320 as well. Let's have a look down here. You can see I just exceeded it, 325. So something to certainly keep in mind as you're flying the airplane and controlling your speed. Alright, now, here we go. We can see our gyro is getting out of control. But as you can see, it only got out of control as we really started the descent and changed our attitude. So that really made the airplane a little bit more interesting to fly over there. Okay, so the cabin altitude is just getting below 10,000. I'll keep the mask on for a little second over here. I'm just going to mute myself and stop talking all the time so that you can still appreciate the sounds in the background there, where you can actually hear the true breathing out of the oxygen masks. So stand by for that. So I promise that's not me you hear breathing there, but that is actually the pilot that we've got in the... that's actually the pilot that we got inside here. Now, Jonami 430, that is a very interesting question down there. Is there any visual effects if the cabin pressure fails, like blacking out? Well, that's actually something that we need to try on another live stream, because we are descending already, and the time of youthful consciousness down here is just too long. So over here, the time of youthful consciousness, you know, is like an hour or so at the altitude we are flying. Up at level 310, it's like 3 to 5 minutes. So it is worth trying that out. And I'm probably going to do that on my next flight with this one, taking it all the way up to maximum cruising level. Alright, so we are slowly starting our turn up here, and as you can see, the gyro is slowly coming to rest. And it's spinning a little bit slower now, but I really like to see these in action. The thing that I want you to take away from this is if a gyro failure happens, you can see now it's stabilized off. But if a gyro failure happens, the thing is going to continue showing correctly until you start initiating a turn or a descent and stuff like that. And that is really where things can get out of control really, really quickly. So, if that happens, if one of the gyros is no longer showing what you would expect it to show, then be sure to catch out on it and start acting as soon as possible. It might be that just one of the circuit breakers has popped, but it might also be something a little bit more severe, like a failure of the gyro itself. Alright, so like that, I'd say we are now below 10,000. The cabin altitude is below 10,000 as well. It's passing 7,000 right now. So let's go ahead and get rid of that oxygen mask. And turn off the passenger oxygen as well. And as you can see, our oxygen has depleted to something like 1,300 or so from the previous much higher value that we had when we started the flight. So that's quite interesting to see that they simulated all of that. Also, note how long it took the gyro to run down, but note how it is still somewhat reacting, you know? So if we are just keeping straight flight for now, then you will see that gyro slowly starting to erect itself. So just because it's doing something doesn't mean that it is actually working. However, watch as I'm about to switch the gyro switches back on over here, and you will quickly see them spring back in action. Just before I do that, one more thing for you to notice. You can see our current course is something like 175. You can see that I'm here on the standby as well. But notice, on here, on the number 2, as we switched that off as well, you can see I switched off both ADI2 and HSI2. Notice down here how that one's still stuck on the previous heading of 205. So, like this, you can quickly have your heading run out as well. So it is a good idea at every now and then in the flight just to do a quick comparison of your indications to make sure that everything is working. Now watch as I'm turning them both on again, how quickly a gyro can turn on compared to it turning off earlier. So that's both going on. And as the gyro is spinning up, it's getting under control down here. And here we go, that's what we wanted to see. Alright, so that is pretty much the stuff that, some of the system stuff over here that's really fascinating to see in my opinion. For now, let's continue the descent. We'll still do 2,000 feet a minute. The cabin needs like 6 more minutes until it's down. I don't want to make it descend faster than 1,000 feet a minute though, because faster than that can really hurt in your ears. We might just about have to make us descend a little bit slower. Let's make it 1,500 feet a minute, and might just about have to do a little orbit over here. So let's go here real quick. Let's make that we don't want to fly a search and rescue pattern, by the way, but let's see, hold at waypoint. Can we make that at present position somehow? Well, probably not, so what I'm gonna do is this. Let's go heading select and just take a little delay here. Going westbound. Like that. 270 heading. Should get us out over the ocean. Getting that little delay that we need here in order to get our altitude down. And since we're going out to the ocean, let's do 3,000 feet initially. And have a very quick look into SkyVector once again to plan for our arrival and landing. So here you guys go. Let's take the world VFR map, and here we go. So that's Enzo Airport down here. You can see the runway is nicely aligned with that little fjord, and the weather 23084, slightly variable, QNH 1016. Okay, so first things first, QNH 1016, let's quickly dial that in. Here we go, and since we're below the transition, we're gonna put the pulse lights and the landing lights on as well. And then on here, 1016 coming alive as well. Okay, perfect. So, Flying out over the coastline, let's turn southbound again. Course 180. Like that. And I do believe this is... yeah, this is that little area that we've seen where the airport is located in. So all we gotta do is find that fjord where the airport actually is, and we are going to make a landing, well, wind 230 degrees, so somewhat into the direction of westbound. The runway down there is actually looks like something like a 1.5 or 3 something to me. So let's go ahead and find that airport and take it down. I do believe it is going to be located somewhere down here or somewhere over here, maybe. Not all that easy finding those little VFR strips all the time, but we're gonna get there, and we can always just make use of the GPS map as well. Like that. We're gonna maneuver us straight into downwind over here. The field is located almost on sea level elevation, so for that, let's go down to 1,500 feet. So, this is actually the fjord where it's in. Is it? Like that. Yeah. I do believe it's this. So we'll be on a downwind track momentarily, and then we can descend to pattern altitude, which is going to be 1,000 AGL, and then bring us in. So let's go left, something like 150, I believe. If we're looking for a little bit more of information about the airfield that we're flying to, by the way, then we can just do this. Airport info, Enzo, yep, it automatically selected that. So, stored airport, elevation 161. So let's set our altitude back real quick to 161. Gonna make it 1,200 feet over here for the descent. And then, weather data. Oh, interesting. It's got that in the GTN as well, so that would have been even easier than looking just at the Skyvector website. Okay, so cabin altitude down at 2,000 right now. We are passing 3,000 in the descent over here. So that is just fine. And finally, the runway in question is down here. 4,790 foot. And it's a left pattern that we have on here. So that means we are already on the correct side for the downwind. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Okay, got that little hill over here. We don't want to fly into that, so let's put the autopilot off now. Second push removes the flight director from view. Let's make our left-hand turn. Also, we don't need the sunshades anymore. However, we might just put it on the side over here. Okay, let's start reducing our speed. Birds are still a hazard over here. I should have reduced the speed a lot earlier, I can tell you honestly. Passing 200, inertial separator is coming on. Speed is coming back nicely. Let's go down to 1,000 AGL. That's a little bit less where we are flying at the moment, but we got the radio altitude up here, 960. We got to maintain at least 500 feet above the ground. Master caution, inertial separator, that's fine. And here we go, pattern altitude. Adding back a little bit of thrust, but what I'm going to do already, go out of the 850 mode, like that, and now we can go flaps to takeoff, like that. Okay, the field should be on the left-hand side over here now, and yep, indeed, this is the airfield. Let's go into the downwind. You can start reducing the speed, landing gear down. And here we go. Might have come a little bit too close to the airfield right now, so let me just open that pattern up a little bit more again. Get the speed back. So with the gear down, taxi light can come on. I'll keep the yaw damper for the final turn and then turn it off once we're established on the final. Okay, right-hand fuel tank has the most fuel in it and is selected. Landing flaps. Can we see
500.
something of the airport? So much easier to look outside in real world. No, it's hidden beneath the airport is hidden down there. And I'm getting a little bit too slow. Now let's turn on a quick cheat here. We'll go into the visual down here in the GTN. Let's enable visual 3.2, here we go. And now the GTN draws us the same indications that we would have on an RNAV approach. Okay then. Turning in. Slightly overshot, of course. I'll tell you what, I don't like the approach as I'm flying it right now. We are gonna do a go or a touch and go of this one. And we'll fly one more pattern that is gonna be a proper one. This one is a little bit too destabilized for my likes. Okay, power off. Bang, straight on. Okay then. Trim is good, flaps back to takeoff. Set power. Power set, 85, rotate, positive climb, tap the brakes, gear up, 7.5 degrees pitch, works pretty good, 115, flaps up, that means yaw damper on, taxi light off, and 850 mode with the flaps retracted. Here we go. So 200 to go, let's start the level off. Pull the power. Alright. So let's see, where is that hill that we didn't want to fly into? Over there. Well, that's gonna be fine. Okay then, in the downwind once more. And here we go. Okay, abeam the fields. Flaps take off, gear down. And with the gear comes the taxi light. By the way, as the gear is still in transit, you can see the taxi light isn't yet illuminating. But when the gear is down, now, the taxi light itself is also switching on. There's a little micro switch built into the landing gear extension mechanism that basically controls this. And I just love all of these small details in an airplane like this. That's what I really like about those black square aircraft. The amount of details in them is just insane. Okay, let's start turning base. Landing flaps. Pull the power off. Start a shallow descent there. Not too much. Over there is our field. And this one got to be a little bit better than the previous. So we've burned enough fuel that we can approach at 80 knots now, compared to 85 that we used previously. You can see we used like, I don't know, a third of the fuel or so. Okay, lights are on, landing gear is down, flaps are down, that's what we need. So approach speed should be 80 now. Okay, right on the puppies. How are we doing? Pretty well. Okay. Still overshot. It's just a pain that you can't easily see the runway when you've got this large strut of the door there in front of it, but it's okay. Alright then, established on the final, yaw damper off, and with that we are ready to go. So, just ahead of the runway, pull off the power, and a little flare, and then we'll put it right on the aiming point. Like this. Alright, and here we are. So we'll let it roll till there. Yes, I admit I was about to break it down for that one up there. I missed it, I realized it, so we'll take it down over here. And that's what I meant, that I find it rather hard to taxi from here, you know? We just go a little bit further up, that's a little bit better for the taxi. Okay, that is a tight taxiway, but here we are. Okay, cool. So we'll just park ahead of the hangars over here. And in the meantime, landing lights off, pulse lights off, flaps up, and weather radar off. Transponder, mode alpha, and that's it. Alright, here we are. Parking brake set. So let's go ahead and shut it all down. Alright, so with all of that done, I think we can cut the engine. Well, maybe we do this first. Alright. Condition lever off. Fuel selector manual, auxiliary boost pump off. And then if you press the middle of the fuel selector here, you can pull it out. And like that you can rotate it to the off position. And as you can see, we can't stick it back inside here right in the middle. So that is going to provide a little, how you call that? That provides a little safety margin there. Did I just not remember the word safety margin? Okay, no comment on that. Alright, so that is going to be that is going to be it. The engine is about to stop. So one final thing that I just want to show you before we actually shut everything down over here. You can see we used up quite a bit of our oxygen up here. And we're down to like 1,300 psi. Now that is still sufficient for flight. But nonetheless, if we just flick that radio master on again, and we go all the way in the weather radar up here on the nav page, once the self-test is complete, then you can see that down here we can refill the oxygen. So if I do that now, then you can see that it's filling back up to the maximum so that we are all set for the next flight. Now be sure to use your oxygen wisely, because it is actually quite expensive buying aviation oxygen. But here we go again. So this gives you somewhat of an idea how long you have got oxygen for. It is sufficient to get you down if you need to do an emergency descent, but it is not all that much oxygen. So just something to be aware of. Okay then. One last thing I want to show you as I'm turning it off. You can see I turned my electrical power off while I still had the radio master button on. And here we go, we can see the two black square pages are still available even while the rest of the power is technically off. So all those weather radar modes here are off. And one thing I want to show you, and that is actually the last thing over here, is on the ground mode of the Radiomaster. So we're running on GTM750 number 1 right now, because COM1 is attached to that. Now, if we had anything else selected here as COM1, like the GNS530 or the KDX55 units, those would be on as well. However, in order for the ground mode of the Radiomaster to work, and that is something that I'm sure many of you are actually going to fall a victim to, in order for that to work, the crash bar needs to be up. So if the crash bar is down, like here, you can see the Radiomaster can be on as it wants. There is not going to be any power available for your ground mode. And that is basically how the TBM does work. So if we flick that back on now and turn the Radiomaster back on, you can see it starts up our COM1 once again. But that's basically it. So that's the new black square TBM850. I'm pretty sure it is going to become one of my favorites very, very quickly. Indeed, I do love it already. I've flown it for like 20 flight hours now. Since I got the pre-release version like, I don't know, a week ago or whenever it was. So I've flown it for about 20 flight hours. I totally love it. And it's a great cruising aircraft. It's a great aircraft to fly in VATSIM. And it is a great aircraft to fly both VFR and IFR, as you have just seen. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. I do hope that you have absolutely liked it and that you are going to like this video as, well, this aircraft I meant, as much as I did. And in the meantime, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining, everyone. Do hope that you've enjoyed it. Leave a like, as it does help with the YouTube algorithms, and if you're up for more, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can be sure I will be flying the TBM again in the next couple of days, do a little bit more IFR flying with it. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank you very much for joining. Hope that you have loved the flight as much as I did. And as always, leave a like, as it does help out the channel. And if you really like what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Until then,